Good morning. The committee will come to order. I'd like to begin this hearing by stating the Oversight Committee mission statement. We exist to secure two fundamental principles. First, Americans have the right to know that the money Washington takes from them is well spent. And second, Americans deserve an efficient, effective government that works for them. Our duty in the Oversight and Government Reform Committee is to protect these rights. Our solemn responsibility is to hold government accountable to taxpayers because taxpayers have a right to know what they get from their government. We will work tirelessly in partnership with citizen watchdogs to deliver the facts to the American people and bring genuine reform to the Federal bureaucracy. This is the mission of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Good morning and welcome to today's hearing titled Oversight of the Federal Government's Procurement of Ammunition. I am pleased to have an opportunity to hold this as a joint hearing with Chairman Jordan on this important matter. I would also like to welcome Ranking Member Tierney, Ranking Member Cartwright, members of the subcommittee, and those joining us in the audience here today. As we have seen in very recent news reports, the Federal Government's massive procurement of ammunition, including articles from USA Today, the Associated Press, and Investors Business Daily, today's hearing will provide members with a chance to engage with senior Federal government officials to discuss the procurement of ammunition at the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration Office of Inspector General. We are not talking about the Department of Defense. We are not talking about the Department of Justice. We are focused on these two agencies here today. And as we have seen, Homeland Security currently has in inventory more than 260 million rounds of ammunition. The question is, what is an appropriate use of this ammunition? Where is it stored? How much are they paying for it? And what are they doing with it? In fiscal year 2011, the Department of Homeland Security purchased approximately 108 million rounds of ammunition. In fiscal year 2012, Homeland Security purchased more than 103 million rounds of ammunition. And to put it in context, the testimony we will hear today, they have about 70,000 agents who actually carry and use and need to be trained with weapons. In the meantime, Homeland Security recently opened up a purchase order that allowed them on the high end to purchase over 1 billion rounds. In fact, in the opening statement, if there is any way that the Homeland Security could clarify, because we have seen various news reports and we have asked for documentation and it is still unclear to me, how many, what is the top, this is the top end, this is the maximum amount. It does not suggest that they are going to purchase that amount, but they could under this purchase order buy up to, and I appreciate some clarification, is it 1.1 billion rounds over 5 years? Is it 1.4, 5, 6 billion rounds over 5 years? We would like to know what that is. In fiscal year 2012, the Department of Homeland Security used approximately 116 million rounds of ammunition. In comparison, the United States Army purchased about 91 million rounds of small arms ammunition in fiscal year 2012. For an end strength of both active duty and reserve components of about 1.1 million people. This means that the Army allocated about 347 rounds of small arms ammunition per soldier in fiscal year 2012. Based on Homeland Security's allocation of approximately 1,300 to 1,600 rounds per officer, in comparison, Homeland Security officers used roughly 1,000 rounds more per person or per officer than the average Army officer. On March 8, 2013, I wrote letters to the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration requesting information and briefings in order to learn more about their procurement, and I appreciate their response. First, it is entirely inexplicable why the Department of Homeland Security needs so much ammunition. We did not look at the Department of Defense, nor did we look at the Department of Justice. Based on the information provided to the committee by Homeland Security, their officers used what seems to be an exorbitant amount of ammunition. DHS also provided documents that show the Department used approximately 116 million rounds. This is a stark difference from what Secretary Napolitano recently claimed that Homeland Security has purchased. She said, quote, "I think our average is about 150 million rounds per year." A gap of over 30 million rounds of ammunition between the Secretary's figures and the numbers provided to the committee is a significant difference and something we need to sort out. Based on the information provided to the committee, approximately 88 million of the 116 million rounds, or 75%, were for training purposes by Homeland Security. At the same time, approximately 28 million rounds of ammunition were for quote-unquote operational purposes, end quote. Part of what we need clarification on is what is operational and what is training. Please help in your opening statement clarify the difference between those two. According to Homeland Security, operational purposes means for operational posture, which translates to ammunition out in the field with officers and reserve ammunition in the field. But again, this needs clarification. I'm also hearing a different story than when we see people out in the field. I, for instance, was with Mr. Bentivolio, went to visit the southwest border. We visited with Customs and Border Patrol and ICE officers. We did this during an April 2nd trip to the Yuma sector. We went to the Nogales sector. We visited with people from the El Centro sector there in California. They were complaining about a shortage of ammunition. In fact, I'd point to this website posting that they put up here. El Centro Border Patrol agents were just informed on March 28, 2013, that due to budget cuts, they would not be issued any ammunition this quarter for maintaining proficiency above the number of rounds needed to complete their quarterly qualification. 3 different agents, 3 different sectors, each complained that they're giving 0 rounds to do and perform training, which is of concern on many fronts. This, again, is something that needs clarification. If the Department of Homeland Security did, in fact, use 28 million rounds of ammunition in the field, or ammunition has been stockpiled for operational purposes at local offices, why are law enforcement officers being told there is no ammunition for training? We have more than 260 million rounds on hand. And while I appreciate Homeland Security providing answers to my inquiries, the response has provoked even more questions. The employee count provided by Homeland Security indicated there were 90,079 employees that use fire and need to be trained on a weapon. The testimony today will say that that number is just over 70,000. Again, we need some clarification because the written statement that we got says over 90,000. Testimony today will say 70,000. That's a huge difference. We understand that not all employees are armed, but there are 240,000 people, just Homeland